domnul Johan Meyer, manager de portofoliu la Fondul Proprietatea și CEO al Franklin Templeton București. Mr. Meyer, welcome. You are a promoter of corporate governance in Romanian state-owned companies and also a promoter of the listing of Hidroelectrica. Can you tell us what is the situation of the energy companies in your portfolio right now from this perspective?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation and the ability to participate in the conference today. And thank you for continuing to entertain me in English. One of these days I should be able to speak with you all in Romanian. As you mentioned, we have been staunch supporters of the introduction of corporate governance in state-owned companies, as well as development of the capital market. As a fund manager with a number of investments in the energy space, with the largest asset in our portfolio currently being Hidroelectrica, also with Petrom and a number of other market participants, it's clearly in our interest to make sure that we have a level playing field that is managed with companies that is managed by professionals, by independents, and that the rules are the same for all the market participants. So the situation in the companies as it stands at the moment, obviously, it's still not perfect. I was very encouraged to hear Minister Popescu saying earlier in the morning that, for example, with Romgaz, that the Law 109 will be applied in the selection of the board, which is a very positive development and will bring it on par with a number of other companies in the portfolio. And quite frankly, this is something that investors in portfolio companies and listed companies expect to see in terms of the management, in terms of the transparency of potential investments on the stock market. We have the situation with the Hidroelectrica where Ordinance 109 was applied in the selection process of the existing board. So clearly some companies are a bit ahead of others, but the importance is that this process is continuously applied in an effort to make sure that we have the best people that are the caretakers of these companies and ultimately the stewards of investments trust where they decide to invest the money. So that certainly is a positive development. I think there's still a lot of work that can be done. It's by no means, as I mentioned, a perfect situation, but at least we're moving in the right direction. I can very easily say that the last couple of years have been very frustrating in the sense that the corporate governance have gone in the opposite direction until fairly recently, where we've seen an effort under the new government to improve the process and to make sure that the legislation is applied as it is intended in the companies. Now, looking at Hidroelectrica and the market development specifically, and I'm sure you'll hear the same from my colleague, Mr. Badia, we are very encouraged in terms of the potential development of a listing of Hidroelectrica. Clearly, this is something that we have been advocating for and working on for a large number of years. Unfortunately, thus far, it's been a moving target, and that is quite disappointing. But I think with the support of the majority shareholder, with the management and the board of the company and ourselves cooperating, I think we're finally approaching a point where it does become realistic to list the company on the Bucharest Stock Exchange, and also in order to give it as much of a opportunity to access a wide pool of investors, looking at international exchanges as well for a dual listing. However, there's obstacle that's been been placed in the path of this listing, which of course is the moratorium on the sale of any state-owned assets. This is Law 173, which is currently being in the process of being withdrawn as part of the parliamentary process. Now, obviously, we'd like to see this happen as soon as possible so that the preparation for the listing can resume. As a reminder, there are a couple of steps have already been taken on this path. One is the appointment of the legal advisors and also the appointment of an equity advisor that can assist the company and the shareholders in terms of the structuring of an IPO. So we are very keen to get this process restarted as soon as possible. Obviously, this first requires the revocation of this obstacle in the legislation. Looking at a more holistic picture, at a bigger picture, perhaps, in terms of overall investment in the energy space, I think what we are seeing is investments in green energy. The prices for example, in the development of wind parks and solar parks are constantly declining as we are seeing new technology emerge, and we're seeing existing technology prices are coming down. So it makes increasing sense for investors to pursue green electricity production compared to all the technology and unfortunately dirty technology, if one can call it that, where it continues to become more expensive and more prohibitive, and investors clearly are moving in the opposite direction, and this is ultimately where the industry should end up in terms of ensuring a longer-term sustainable business model for the companies. We've seen Hidroelectrica in recent months being more active in this regard, making a couple of key investments in terms of further developing that green credential in terms of their production capacity. I think we've always been accused at the Fondul Proprietatea of not necessarily supporting investment plans. What we've always been at pains to point out is that we evaluate these opportunities on a project-by-project basis, and when in our assessment it makes financial sense, we will happily support those investments, and we will continue to do so. One point to add, however, is that investors, whether it is directly in the companies and unlisted assets or potential investors in listed equities, need certainty, they need predictability and stability. And what we would continue to or would like to see going forward is less of an interference, if I can say that, in terms of additional taxes being placed on the producers. And we've been out in the press in the past on these matters, where companies get targeted because they're potentially seen as cash cows. And I think that sends a very concerning signal to potential investors, where companies could be unfairly targeted through increases in taxes that are not thoroughly assessed or considered, and it seems uneconomic to do so. So what I'm calling for here is just predictability and transparency in the process as to how these taxes are determined, how they're applied, and again, I think there's a potential increase in the water tax that is currently being discussed, and I hope that will come back with a more positive answer, because clearly, if it isn't implemented in the way that we've seen it in the past, it represents around a 55% increase in the water costs for the company, for Hidroelectrica specifically, and also other participants in the hydroelectric power generation industry, which is a significant increase. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't see any justification for doing so. And if one is able to provide potential investors with the clarity and certainty on how this has arrived and what the need for these taxes are, I think we would have better comfort from future investors. I'll leave my comments there and happy to take any questions if you have.
So predictability and the stability, of course, and the transparency, it's it's everything that the investors want, not only Fondul Proprietatea. I would also ask you very shortly, what can you tell us about your expectations about the offshore law?
Well, expect the offshore law to be finalized as soon as possible. Again, this is something that investors have been waiting for and preparing for a significant number of years. And the risk there is that investors don't hang around indefinitely with a wallet full of cash until one day everything falls in place. Cash is fluid. Investment opportunities are plentiful. So investors will go where the investment opportunities are. And what I'm concerned about is the longer the delay in finalizing the legislation, the greater the risk that something in the economics of the project might change, the overall circumstances might change, and it might actually never happen. Now, keeping in mind that this is not only an economic consideration, but also from an energy security point of view, this is a critical project for Petrom, for OMV Petrom, but also for Romania, in terms of ensuring energy independence from region over the longer term. So the sooner that this legislation can be agreed on, whoever the stakeholders are in the process, the better for the country, better for the company, and I can only encourage, as I said, all the participants to finalize the process as soon as possible.